The red pill is kryptonite to radical feminists. It's like water to the wicked witch of the West. Why? Why would a documentary about men's issues be so lethal to a group, radical feminists? Why? And the answer is really interesting. You know, radical feminists for years have built up the idea that men are bad. There's something wrong with men, and in fact, men are the problem. They're the problem. They're what makes everything bad. They're violent, they're greedy, they abuse people, etc. Men are the problem. Now, the red pill comes along and it says, you know, men are facing discrimination and hardship in places where they really need compassion. And this puts the radical feminist into a headspin where it doesn't compute. Because what happens? What happens is, you know, if their worldview is based on blaming men for the problem, how can they suddenly become compassionate towards those who they're blaming? Their worldview falls apart quickly. You know, I remember seeing this first when I did workshops for mental health professionals back in the 90s. And I'd be teaching about men and how we process emotions differently. And 95% of the people who came to the workshops were, yeah, they'd really appreciate it. But there was always that 5%, and sometimes less, who would question it. No, that's not right. Men are this, men are that, men are bad. You know, men, you can't say that about men. Blah, 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 blah. And that's exactly what was happening there. Their whole worldview, which was based on the idea that men were somehow bad, was being challenged by saying men have a different way to do things and they deserve a different kind of response from us, and here's what we can do. That put their brains into a spin. It's like the little girl in the movie where her head spins around and around and around. It's just like that. They can't tolerate the idea that men deserve compassion. It's a tough one. Let's imagine just for a minute that we're taking a trip in time. We're going back to the early 1950s, down to a little teeny southern town. We're going to take a film with us. We're going to show it before their Saturday movies. That film is going to be about black people and about how they are facing hardship and discrimination and how they deserve compassion. What kind of response do you think that southern town would have to that movie? Yeah, I don't think they'd be real happy. A lot of the people would just kind of probably not say anything and just walk out. But a small portion of people would be furious. They'd be unhappy. They'd probably want to get the movie banned in places, right? They'd want to get it banned, and they'd say things about the movie that was horrible and terrible, and maybe not even about what the movie was about. And what are we doing here? It says that this movie we're showing about blacks was really a litmus test for racism. You know, if people responded with rage, it was probably showed that, you know, these folks are racist. And I think the same thing can be said about the red pill today. The red pill is a litmus test for bigotry. Because the red pill is only about compassion for men, how men face hardship and discrimination and deserve compassion. And those people who have a hard time with seeing that men need compassion, hey, that's called bigotry. Only compassion for one side and not compassion for the other. And you know, we look around, we could see all kinds of ways that the feminists have reacted much like the southern town to the red pill. You know, first off, they want to get it banned. Oh my goodness. Australia, North America, Europe even, you know, they want to get rid of this movie. They don't want people to see it. You can see the news articles over and over again that show this. They're trying to get rid of this movie. They must be really threatened, right? Gracious goodness. Then there's the people who respond by telling lies about the movie. Just listen to this one woman studies professor who's asked in an interview on the CBC about what is it that the movie is about. This red pill movie, what's it about? Just listen to what she says.
Let's cut through that naivete then and tell me about what the film is and what people it portrays. What do they stand for?
They stand for the right of men to have mostly sexual rights. It's the right of men to engage in any sexual activity that they want, and have entitlement to women's bodies.
Oh boy. So it's all about men wanting and demanding sex. That's the most bizarre thing I think I've ever heard. I laughed so hard when I heard that the first time, but it tells us a story. It tells us a story that this woman cannot tolerate the actual message of compassion for men. She's got to make something up about how these men want sex all the time. But that's not the worst thing. Listen to what else she says.
To the fact that suicide rates are very high for men, incarceration culture, high dropout rates, lowering participation in post-secondary education. These are all very real and pressing and urgent issues. But they go from there immediately to it's women's fault, because they are denying men their natural rights as men. Meaning, if only we could just have sex with whoever and whatever we want, whenever we want, then maybe we wouldn't have to rape you.
So we won't rape you. Oh boy. I mean, either she didn't see the movie or she is really making stuff up here that's just bizarre and incredibly incorrect. And you see this a lot, actually. It's just like that Southern movie where people react to that with venom. We see the venom coming out of people. And in fact, the red pill is a litmus test for bigotry. And here's what I would suggest you do. I would suggest that you buy a copy of this movie and you start going with friends and watching it together and tell them this is a litmus test for bigotry. Buy a copy for people you know. Buy a copy for people in your family. Get this message out, because really, this is the best ambassador for men's issues we have. It's a wonderful ambassador. It tells the story in a clear way, in a concise way, and in a compassionate way that men are facing hardship and discrimination and deserve compassion. And when people hear that, if they're bigoted, they get upset, right? So, help them find out if they're bigots or not. Send them a copy. And let's not forget, Men Are Good. Come see me on Patreon. Like, subscribe, comment, all the rest of that stuff. And remember, you are good too, as a man.
Last to go. We'll see the first three go before her. And her mangy little dog, too. How about a little fire, Scarecrow? You cursed brat! Look what you've done! I'm melting! Melting! Oh, what a world! What a world! Who would have thought a good little girl like you could destroy my beautiful wickedness? Ah, look out! Look out! I'm going!
She's dead. You killed her.